How's it going, everybody? Void here, coming back at you all with a new video. And if you're not aware, my new schedule for releasing videos has been Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, because I know there's some people in Europe who, when I normally publish my videos, they're already asleep, and you get people even further east who are well asleep. So I thought this was a decent compromise. I'm going to do 5 underrated commanders. I want to talk about 5 of them. This isn't a ranked list or a top 5 or whatever, because I like doing this. I like taking 5 underrated cards. I like taking 10 underrated commander cards that you can fit into any deck. I like talking about those. And this is always cool too, when you get to explore different commander options, maybe lesser known ones that it might help someone else out. If you're looking for budget options, I think you can build budget decks around all of these. And I'll do my best to point you in the right direction for each of these commanders to kind of give you the idea, give you the gist, I should say, what cards you need to look for, what's an auto-include, what really works out well. So the first commander option I want to talk about here is Audrey Lunar Marshal. This has been around for a while now, since 2016, Shadows over Innistrad, and I've always wanted to make a good deck built around Audrey, but a keyword-specific deck is very specific. It's kind of hard to fit a lot of these cards into other decks, because I don't really have too many pro-combat decks, but this is a pro-combat deck, so everything is going to be focused around creatures with very specific keywords or equipment that can offer you very specific keywords. Audrey is one of the rare commander options that will give all of your creatures a keyword if at least one of them has that keyword. And while it's not every keyword, it's most of them, most of the good ones. You get either First Strike, Flying, Death Touch, Double Strike, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Skulk, Trample, and Vigilance. I would like to point out that Skulk is a very, very rare keyword, more specific to the Shadows over Innistrad set. And it's definitely worth including because it helps make your creatures unblockable. But looking at all these keywords, you get just enough to make this a viable combat strategy. And you don't even have to go for super expensive inclusions to this deck, which is the only downside to this deck, is that you have a lot of good creatures with good keywords that are either in standard and they're expensive because they're good in standard or something else. But we have good creatures like Aerial Responder, Flying, Vigilance, and Lifelink. You probably don't see it in any commander deck that doesn't care about these keywords, but he's very good value for 3 mana. There's also Zatalpa, Primal Dawn, not a very expensive commander card. You can find it for pennies, but it gives you all of those awesome keywords: Flying, Double Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible. You also have the god creatures in white, so you have Oketra, you have Heliod, but Oketra the True is probably my favorite to go with because you have Double Strike and Indestructible. And unlike those gods from Theros, Oketra is always a creature, so Double Strike and Indestructible is pretty much guaranteed. You also have some pretty good budget options if you're looking for good equipments that give awesome keywords. You have Haunted Cloak, Vigilance, Trample, and Haste, so all very important keywords for combat, making it so much easier for you to deal your damage. Sword of Vengeance is another very good one. If an equipment or a creature can provide you with at least 2 keywords, I would say it's worth including in this kind of deck. So if you get +2 power, First Strike, Vigilance, Trample, and Haste, that right there is a winner. So overall, I think Audrey is definitely worth looking into. Not a super competitive deck, not one that I think is going to win you many games, but I think the strategy is pretty fun. And the next commander option I want to talk about here is Norin the Wary. Norin the Wary kind of stands out as being one of those commander options that I think most people, looking at it for the first time, wouldn't assume it's a good commander option. It's just a 1-mana creature, which those aren't always bad, but they don't really do much. Norin, whenever a player plays a spell or a creature attacks, you remove him from the game and then return him under your control at the end of turn. Nothing super special. The only thing you really take advantage of, but it's surprisingly powerful, is that ETB at the end of turn. This can happen each turn, not just yours, but your opponent's turns, which is where this really gets spicy if you have things like Confusion in the Ranks. Confusion in the Ranks is probably the most hated card that you can pair up with Norin the Wary, because each turn you're having it come into play and you get to steal a creature. Granted, your opponents are going to be able to do the same thing with your permanents. The idea is to just have more Norin ETBs, getting more of your opponent's creatures than they're able to take back. We also have probably the most powerful card in red, Purphoros, God of the Forge. You know, whenever a creature enters the battlefield, Purphoros deals 2 damage to each opponent. That's never really a bad thing. We of course have the newer card, Terror of the Peaks, so if you want to be able to target with that damage, you're able to do that as well. If you're looking for some kind of token production and you don't just want this to be a game about you having your Norin out there, there's Genesis Chamber so you can get those mirror tokens. It's also something that can benefit your opponent, but again, here's to hoping that you get more creatures entering the battlefield. This kind of creature does make a pretty good Chaos Commander, so I highly recommend you explore Norin. If not for Chaos, you can go for ETBs and focus more on just red stuff ETBs, which we don't really have bad ones now that we have Dockside Extortionists, so explore and have fun. We then have Thanos Urza's Apprentice. Now I'm not going to lie, losing Paradox Engine really hurt this kind of commander, since that's the potential for a lot of those combos. However, I think the creature is still fantastic on its own. 2 mana with haste means you have some very early potential to combo and go off. 2 mana and tap to copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an artifact source. You can't choose mana abilities because mana abilities don't use the stack, but that's fine, because we still have some pretty decent activated abilities from artifacts like Bosch Iron Golem, Kuldotha Forge Master so you can tutor up some artifacts. We have Master Transmuter so you can cheat into play more creatures. We have Memnarch so you can take more permanents. You can still fool around with things like Strionic Resonator. You have the awesome Retrofitter Foundry, so if you want to make some more tokens, you can do that. Artifact decks tend to be among the more powerful in Commander, and while it's not really a powerful Commander option, I think Thanos can be a breath of fresh air, can change it up a bit. If you're used to playing some really overpowered Commanders, try to explore a little bit, get out of your comfort zone. And then we have Rosheen Manderer. I'm not the biggest fan of Gruul, I'm just going to come out and say it. I just don't think that Gruul has a lot of mechanics that are worth exploring. It's very combat focused, it's a lot like Boros, but Rosheen Manderer is one of those Gruul commanders that really changes it up a bit. So rather than just your typical get a big creature, go stompy stompy, give it trample, whatever, you're playing a deck that rewards you for X costed spells, because your commander provides you with 4 mana that you can only use for X costs. So naturally, you can play a ton of Hydras. Most of those Hydra cards are X costed, and while we do end up playing a big creature deck in Gruul, you have at least a different kind of way of doing it. But you have other spells too. You have Clan Defiance, so if you want some removal, or you want to burn a player, you can do something like that. You could use a Comet Storm, again, similar idea. There's also Magus of the Candelabra, so if you're interested in untapping more lands, let's say you need to play something that isn't an X-costed spell, you might need to do something like that. If I'm going to play a big creature deck, if I'm going to end up going that route anyway, I want to at least feel like I have direction. And the problem with so many big creature decks is that you're just playing a good stuff creature. It's just there because it has the power and some keywords. Well, that's kind of boring to me. I want to feel like I'm following a path. And that's what's fun in Commander. I know we like to kind of do whatever we want, but I like structure. I like feeling that there is the best possible way to build a commander. And you could throw in something like a Walking Ballista if you want to go completely X-costed. Doesn't have to combo, doesn't have to serve any crazy purpose like that. Just a really cool commander option, and I think with the exception of Norin and Thanos, I haven't played the other 3 commanders on this list. I've played against it, and I think it's always been one of those cool under-the-radar commanders. Definitely has some power there that you can take advantage of. And then the last commander option I want to talk about today is one that is actually really old, but I haven't seen it. In fact, I don't think I've ever played against it. But ever since I saw this guy, I'm like, I want to build him that one time. And then I forget. That commander is Vali Ildal. 4 mana black-green. You tap to have target creature's power or toughness become 1 until end of turn, which is just so weird. It's so specific. It's even more weird than tapping for mana that can only be used on X-costed spells. This is something that interacts with a few things, and I would say interacts with them pretty well. You have cards like Karavak the Spiteful, which is a newer card you can use. If all other creatures are getting -1/-1, then all you have to do is tap your Vali Ildal and you can just start killing any creature. Same thing is true with the enchantment Knight of Soul's Betrayal. There is of course a cool interaction with Tree of Perdition. All you have to do is make Tree of Perdition's toughness 1, and instead of making an opponent's life total 13 until end of turn, you make it 1, which is pretty mean. You have commanders that focus on -1/-1 counters like Hepatra, Vizier of Poisons. If you can easily distribute -1/-1 counters, that's another way that you can get rid of your opponent's creatures. Pestilence is another card that you can easily just ping each creature, and if you can make a creature's toughness 1 until end of turn, it's dead again. Of course, in combination with something like Thornbite Staff, this can be a combo where you can kill off every creature. Whenever a creature is put into the graveyard from play, you untap the creature so you get to keep untapping your Vali Ildal. So really sweet commander option. I think this one definitely the most underrated on the list. Have not seen a commander deck at all, and I know the ability is good. It's just very different compared to what you're used to seeing in graveyard strategies, that kind of stuff. Reanimator tends to be a bit more powerful, but flying under the radar, you might have a weaker deck, but you may be able to take advantage of that. Part of commander is politics at the table, so you still have a good commander here that can kill off many creatures. But anyway, let me know what you think about these 5 underrated commanders. Not commander cards, but actual commanders. I know I tend to do top 10s for just commander cards in general, but I think all of these are fantastic as commander options. So let me know what you think about it. Subscribe, like, comment, share, hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss any future videos. Void here signing off. You all have a wonderful day.